Okay, we are live now, as you can see. You can probably see yourself. So we're going to go ahead and get started in a minute.
It's on? Is this? Oh, it's on.
Is this on? Oh, hello. I am just letting you know that we have met quorum and the meeting can officially start. Yay.
Good evening. Welcome to the second meeting of the 2021-2022 Undergraduate Student Senate meeting. It is February 8th and it is 6:44. Before we move on to the adoption of agenda, I really want to take a moment and talk about this weekend. I know that a lot of different people experienced a lot of different things depending on where you are, if you were an RA, if you were downtown, whether you're at the comfort of your home. Getting a text message that there is an active shooter near or on campus is incredibly scary, and I want to let you guys know that you are not going through those emotions alone. It has really shooken up the entire community. We have done our best to try to provide resources. If anybody has other resources that we did not share that you think would be beneficial, please let us know. We want to be here for you guys and the rest of the student body. Also, I don't know if anybody had heard about JMU. There have been some incidences there recently, and it really draws attention to making sure that you are okay and that you are checking on your friends to make sure that they are okay. This is a place where we want to support and uplift one another, and we are here for you at any point in your life, and I just wanted to let you guys know that in case you weren't fully aware. Y'all know I love ya. Alrighty, we are going to go to the adoption of agenda. The agenda today is the adoption of agenda, adoption of previous minutes, guest speaker, which is none, old business, which is none. New business, we are reading of the governing documents.
I'd also like to induct one new senator today.
We're going to induct a new senator.
Okay, pause. Just real quick. So, cabinet, technically, because you're not voting members, you can't add something to the agenda. I get that we're going back on what I said. My apologies. Can you ask a senator, which you were going to do, to make that motion to add it? It doesn't matter what it's called. Just like senator appointment, maybe?
I am Senator Maybach, and I motion to adopt a new senator. Beautiful. All right.
I'm actually going to critique that just a little, just because we're all learning. Can you phrase it to where we are adding like a senator appointment under new business? Like, we need to know exactly where it goes for the minutes purposes. Yes, literally that. Thank you.
Beautiful. I go through the rest of the report? Okay. Because we have to approve.
Yeah, well, there's been a motion on the floor to do that thing, and you have to take a second, so.
Cool. She just seconded.
Okay. Yeah, is there any opposition?
Is there any opposition? Seeing none.
Okay, then just say, VP O'Connor, you can add it to the agenda.
All right, VP O'Connor, you can add it to the agenda. Moving on, we have cabinet reports, we have USS director reports, university governance reports, and advisor reports. Is there a motion to approve the agenda? Beautiful. Yeah, thank you. Is there any opposition? Seeing none, the agenda is approved. Adoption of previous minutes. Do we go over that?
Yeah, so I realized we didn't talk about this last time. So under adoption of previous minutes for everyone's knowledge, essentially, Caroline, what you need to say is, now we're moving on to the adoption of the previous minutes, and then say the previous minutes were sent out ahead of time, so they will not be read aloud. Are there any questions on the previous minutes? If there are no questions on the previous minutes, you don't have to take any motions. You can just say, with no questions, or like seeing none, hearing none, the previous minutes have been approved, hit the gavel, and then move on.
Okay.
That was a lot. I'll walk you
But,
through it.
Um,
Okay, so now moving on to the
now
adoption of the
moving
previous.
on to the adoption of previous minutes.
The previous minutes were sent out ahead of time.
They were sent out ahead of time.
So they
and
will not be read aloud.
aloud.
Mhm. Are there any questions?
Any questions about them? Seeing none, we will move forward.
Just say the previous minutes have been approved, and then
Okay.
hit the gavel.
Cool. Seeing none, the previous minutes have been approved. We don't have a guest speaker, and we don't have old business. Moving on to new business, the reading of the governing docs. Is this a time for Q&A? Sorry, guys.
No, all is well, all is well. We are all still learning. So I realize this is an exciting time because this is our first piece of new business. Woo! Okay. Yeah, that's the excitement that we should have had at the beginning. We'll try it again next time. So what you'll essentially need to say is, like, under new business, we have reading of the governing documents. You just need to say, will the chief sponsor of this legislation come to the podium at this time?
Beautiful. Will the chief sponsor of this new legislation please come to the podium at this time?
All right. Hello, everyone. Am I going to be able to, like, pivot myself so I can read this all out? Okay. All right. So for everyone who doesn't know me, my name is Senator Jimmy Lowe. I authored this, or I'm the chief sponsor of this new piece of legislation, along with Jimmy Haggerty, who unfortunately is out sick today. So I'm pretty much going to read off the new legislation, word for word. That'll be fun. All right. So, committee, not applicable right now. Chief sponsor, Senator Jimmy Lowe. Senator Jimmy Haggerty. Co-sponsor, not applicable. Date of legislation, February 8th, 2022. Title, Approval of Undergraduate Student Senate Governing Documents. With the Undergraduate Student Senate. Resolution number 2021-2022, RP1. Do I have to go through all the dates?
You can just give a general, like, this is the timeline for how we're going to move the governing docs forward through university governance.
Okay, yeah, so the timeline for moving stuff through university governance, we're pretty much reading it here at the Senate. First reading, then approve it, then read it in a commission, and then approve that, and then, it moves on to the other Senates and University Council, and it looks like we'll be reviewing it again later after the Graduate and Professional Student Senate. And then hopefully it will be approved by the Board of Visitors in June 2022. All right, and so the legislation, so whereas the Undergraduate Student Senate, USS, is a newly established student governance entity, and whereas the USS is part of the 5-Senate structure at Virginia Tech, and whereas all Senates are required to have a constitution and a set of bylaws that are consistent with the University Council Constitution in order to best function, conduct best practices, and serve their constituents. And whereas the USS Constitution and bylaws were authored by the USS Transition Team and reviewed by members of the Virginia Tech Administration and the current USS Cabinet. And whereas the USS Constitution and bylaws are required and necessary for best function of the USS, and now therefore be it resolved that the USS approves and adopts the attached Constitution and bylaws effective upon approval from the Board of Visitors. We good?
Yeah, so typically what that would look like after we read it, this can happen either ways. I've seen it both ways. Caroline, for the sake of you not having to get back up, you can just give it to the chief sponsor's responsibility to be like, are there any questions about this piece of legislation? Because this is a special piece of legislation, Dr. Bridgeforth is going to explain a little bit more thoroughly what the process looks like, but like for future references, that's what that would look like. I also have to shout out Jimmy Lowe and Jimmy Haggerty because they were given this maybe like Friday afternoon and did this very beautifully in like 1 hour. So shout out to y'all.
Hey everybody, how are y'all doing? Unfortunately, I don't think I've met everybody, so I want to introduce myself. I'm Dr. Bridgeforth, and I serve as the Senior Advisor to the Undergraduate Student Senate. And so think of me as your coach, your organization coach, your life coach, your career coach, whatever coach you need, but I'm here for you guys. I want to kind of explain what you're doing because it's a big deal and you should be really excited. In 2020, Virginia Tech decided that we wanted to go from an individual governance structure where you had the students, you had the faculty, to this 5 Senate model that President Sands had a vision of. And it's a beautiful vision because what he did is said, I want to hear the voice of all faculty. So he created a faculty senate. Well, he didn't create it, but there's a faculty senate. Then he said, I want to hear the voice of all the staff members, and there's a staff senate. And then he said, I want to hear the voices of all the administrative professional faculty. That's people like me and Jawan and Dr. Wagner. And so there's an AP, what they call AP Senate. Then he said, I want to hear the voice of all the graduate students. And so there's also a graduate student. And then he was like, I want to hear the voice of all undergraduate students. And so this, what you're sitting in, is a new model. It's an undergraduate student senate because before this year, there was not one consolidated voice for all undergraduate students until now. So you should be really excited about that. How did that come to be? So right now, the way that the USS is set up is we have 4 types of senators. So we have class senators, right? And those are the class officers. Who are you? Are you here? Class officers? No, not here tonight? Okay. And then we have college senators. So the college senators, who are you? So that's like, oh, that's awesome. So those are folks that are representing a college. The college officers are, there are a number of them because it's 1 senator per 700 students. Then we have at-large senators. Anybody's an at-large senator? Yay! So the at-large senators are cool too because they really have a wide variety of pieces to work through, and they can focus on certain initiatives, but it's 1 senator per 1,000 students. So at Virginia Tech, we're about 30,000 undergraduates, so that's 30 at-large folks. Then we have a senator representing each UCSO. Let me see my USO people. Okay, so this is where it's really cool. So in the past, we didn't have this model. And bringing in the UCSOs is really cool because that's bringing in a lot of our cultural identity-based groups and organizations. And before now, we didn't have that group of people in the room, so it gives us that sense of diversity and inclusion. And so they're representing their organizations, and they're either elected or appointed by their organizations. And then we have Corps Cadets. I think I see one guy, right? Corps Cadets. And so this is really kind of a neat model. We're the only university in the country to have this model. And I just left a meeting today with my colleagues who are vice presidents across the South. And when they heard what we were doing, they were like, how can we do that? So this is a new model, and it's really working well. So in order to start that process, we had a transition team last May, which Jamie served as a part of, and there were 12 students. Sarah was a part of that as well. Is there anybody else here on the transition team? I don't think so. Valerie. Oh, hey, how are you doing? I haven't seen you in a while. We got to catch up.
And Mallory.
Oh, hey, how are you? Yes. I saw you over there. I just didn't ask. You know. So this group of students, it was 12 students. They went through an interview process. And believe it or not, from May until now, that group really worked on this document. They really started, in March of last year, they worked all summer long to draft this document. And once they draft the document is really the Constitution and the bylaws. The Constitution is what governs this organization. Now, what's unique about this year and why it's different is because in the past, what could happen is the former SGA that we had, they could make a policy change and it just goes, and that's what we do. But now that we have this 5 Senate model, all of the 5 Senates, there's a faculty senate, AP faculty, staff, undergrad, grad, and I think there's like a staff. So it's 5 groups. All of them will have the similar constitution, and it'll all fit to this one model. So when Caroline goes to the table, where's Caroline? Oh, sorry. When Caroline goes to the table and she says, this is what undergraduate students think, she's not speaking for Caroline. She's speaking for all of the 30,000 students. So if you're here as a college student and you're speaking for one of your colleges, you're not speaking for you, you're speaking for your college. Does that make sense? So this constitution that you're about to vote on is called the first reading. So you're not going to vote tonight. But what this is it's just a new document. And what will happen is it will have to be approved by the Board of Visitors. Anybody heard of the Board of Visitors? They're really cool. In the fall, some of us got to have dinner with them. Jimmy, I think Sarah, and it was really fun. And they got an expensive dinner, too. It was really nice. Anyway, the way that this process works at Virginia Tech for passing a legislative document, which this is for it to have a first reading. So the first reading is tonight for this group, and I know this is new, so I want to explain it. The first reading, you'll really look at it, you'll ask questions. We know you haven't read it, and that's okay, that's normal. You'll get a chance to ask questions, put things out there you might not have known about, or just ask general, hey, I want to know about this. Then we'll come back next week, and we'll have a second reading. By then, we hope you have read it. It's one document's 26 pages and one is 12 pages. So, and then you'll have questions that you want to look at or things you might want to know. This is going to be fairly straightforward, and then you'll vote. Now, when you vote on it, it will go to something called the Commission of Student Affairs. That's another governing body. They will have a first reading. If you approve it, they'll have a first reading, and then they'll have 30 more days, and at that point, it will go to every commission at the university, which is a bunch of them. I don't know exactly how many. And then they'll have a second reading, and then they'll vote on it. And I'm pretty sure they'll approve it. And when they approve it, then it'll go to the university council. So the university council is that big group of a representative of every one of the 5 senates. They'll have a first reading, they'll have a second reading. The reason why Virginia Tech has a second reading is because it gives you time to read the document. Does that make sense? Once they approve it, then it will go to the Board of Governors in June, and they will vote on it. So the reason why we're doing this tonight is because we want it to be approved for next year. We have to get it approved between now and next week. And it has to go through this process to get to the Board of Governors. Does that make sense? We've worked on this very hard, so you won't find anything in here that's weird or crazy. And I think what you'll find is just more of a structure of how the positions are lined up, how we're set up, and then what we're looking at. It's important to kind of share this so that you know, and then I'll get out of the way because I'm talking way more than I need to. The Undergraduate Student Senate is really designed to look at only issues regarding and involving undergraduate student life. So let me give you an example. Let's say this group decided that you wanted to have water fountains in every building and you had the money to do that. And you think that's going to impact the quality of student life here. Then you can vote on that, and if you have the money, you can do that. But let's say you want to decide that you want to defund the fire department at Virginia Tech. I mean, not Virginia Tech, but in Blacksburg. That would not be something you would take up. That's another group. The reason I'm saying that is because if there are things that are outside the scope of your responsibility, it would not be reviewed. It would not move forward. In fact, we wouldn't even bring it to this group. The university is trying to really focus in on the scope of responsibility for each of the senates. Does that make sense? And so what we hope will happen in this group is you'll have dialogue, you'll have discussion. And in this room, it's okay to disagree as long as you disagree in the spirit of ut prosum. Does that make sense? Does everybody know what ut prosum means? So that means, to me, you're looking at it not from your perspective, but for the betterment of others. And you can disagree vehemently, but when you leave this room, you're good. You're having lunch together, coffee together, and you're certainly supportive of one another. Does that make sense? So with that, I'll get out of the way. Jimmy, thank you for doing this. And if you have questions, I can answer them for the most part. Okay, sorry. Well, I'm not really sorry. I'm glad I got to see y'all.
Are there any questions?
Yeah, pause real quick. So now, this is an example of supplemental materials to legislation. So sometimes there's gonna be a PDF or a doc that you need to have with the legislation. This is one of those times. So now we're gonna take a look at the Constitution and the bylaws, because if I were to, ask how many people actually looked at this, it was sent out earlier today. So we're going to go through. I am not going to read all of it because I am certainly just not going to do that. But I am going to hit on the points in each article and the things that I feel like you all need to be mindful of when making your decision. Please understand that when I am doing that, I'm not saying that you should do this or this. That is your decision. But I am simply pointing these things out to you all. Does that make sense? Okay. You can take initial questions. Sure.
Yeah, any initial questions? Oh, Senator.
Yeah, so I'm going to repeat back the question just to make sure I got it. You're asking, is there going to be a period of time where we can have like discussion about like amendments that need to be made? Yeah, so this can happen one of a few ways. This is not how typically legislation will look like moving forward because it'll be more cut and dry in terms of like, this is what it is, this is what we're trying to do. I think for this, we really need to be intentional about looking at every single thing because these are our governing documents. So what I am recommending that we do, Caroline, it is ultimately your decision, is that we look over the documents in itself. I like highlight things, and then we actually move into a period either of recess where we have like 5 minutes and we can just 5 or 10 minutes and we can talk as a group, or we can have like, we can enter like a debate, not like hot topic debate, we're going back and forth, but like really just a debate time, so we have a chunk of time to talk about some amendments that we want to make. It is your decision.
Let's do a recess. I think that's going to be, you think, yeah?
Yeah, I agree. And for the record, for the recess, we will stop the live stream.
Yep, okay. Are we reading through the Constitution right now? Are we reading through this now?
Sure, I can do that. Okay. Hello, everyone. All right, I'm going to just start. You can go ahead and scroll out to where to stop. Okay, go back up just a little. I realized that was not far enough. Okay, so the preamble, land acknowledgement, and labor recognition. The preamble to the Constitution, we've all taken a history class. We know what that means. I'm not going to read that. Land acknowledgement and labor recognition, this is something that Virginia Tech does because this is a land-grant institution. It is important to us, so we decided to put this information in here so that we are acknowledging that this land was once belonged to someone and then it was taken, the historical context behind that. Does that make sense? Cool. All right, moving on. Article 1, name. That is the name. Article 2, purpose. This is a purpose. I do want to highlight number 1, provide an environment conducive to the pursuit of learning, scholarship, research, and service that promotes inclusion, well-being, and a sense of belonging for all undergraduate students. When you think about your mission, vision, and values, I really want you all to think about point number 1 because it's in a direct alignment with those things. When you are thinking about, I'm a senator or I'm a cabinet member, what am I supposed to be doing? That is the answer to your question. Okay, keep going. Article 3, function and scope. So really this just talks about like, it's like purpose, but a little longer. Like what are we focusing on? Like who do we serve? So undergraduate students. Keep going. Article 4 is definitions. Keep going. We're almost there. Okay, Article 4 definitions. So throughout this document, you might see some terms that you're not necessarily as familiar with. Either you're new to governance or you're just new to reading a constitution in general. So this is just kind of like a glossary, but at the beginning, outlining some things that matter. I am going to point out E, student member. So this is something that we really take pride in, and I want to make sure that we articulate this so you all can articulate this when you're talking to your constituents. Everyone is a student member of USS, and that really matters. Like every single person that is an enrolled undergraduate student can say that I'm a member of USS. And that's something that we intentionally did because it's kind of like a badge of honor. Like you walk onto campus, as soon as you are accepted into Virginia Tech, you are a member of USS if you choose to come. And that's really important for us when we're thinking about advocacy and paying it forward. Okay, continue. We scrolled a little too fast. I didn't even see what Article 5 was. Article 5, so student membership and then the non-discrimination policy. That link takes you to the actual discrimination, to the actual non-discrimination, policy. So make sure to actually click that link and look at it. Next is organization. So this is how it's set up. I'm going to take a little bit of time on this because I think this will just provide a lot of clarity for some new folks in the room and also a refresher for those of us who did some training and onboarding last semester. So when we're thinking about the structure of USS, it has 7 cabinet members, That is who they are. I am not going to read them. There are also directors and assistant directors. There are 5 directors and 2 assistant directors. Next, we have at-large senators. That is calculated to equal 1 per 1,000 students. What that looks like in practicality is I will run a report right before the election season opens, and I will see how many undergraduate students there are. And really, whatever the number is before the comma is how many at-large senators there are. Make sense? Cool. For college senators, it's essentially the same thing, but it's 1 representative per 750 undergraduate students. And that is like a holistic number. So if there are 1,499, you get 1 senator, but as soon as you hit 1,500, there are 2. That is the metric we're using. There are smaller colleges that don't have that many undergraduate majors. Veterinary medicine is one of them, so we have put this in here. If the total enrollment is under 750 students, they are going to be allocated 1 seat, because we didn't want to leave them out simply because they didn't have a lot of undergraduate students. Next is the UCSO senators. So 17 UCSO senators, they are here. These are what Dr. Bridgeforth was talking about when thinking about like the culturally based organizations. This is something new and intentional that we did with USS to make sure that we all had you at the table when we were making those critical decisions. Next is 2 Corps Cadet senators. Those are chosen from within the Corps. I'm working with them right now. I think it's going to be like position specific, but we are working on that. Next are committees. So there are standing committees that exist. We don't necessarily need to talk about that. The USS will have an advising team, so that's like myself, Gina, Dr. Wagner, Dr. Bridgeforth, and then insert graduate assistant here that used to be Kenley. That makes up the advising team. Next is policies of USS meetings. So the USS will hold bi-weekly meetings with the entire org, including everyone. The meetings are free and open to current students, faculty, staff, and administrators of Virginia Tech. All guests or visitors must be approved to attend USS meetings in advance by the senior advisor. I will say that one more time. All guests or visitors must be approved to attend USS meetings in advance by the senior advisor. Dr. Bridgeforth, can you raise your hand for me? That is our senior advisor. If you do not talk to Dr. Bridgeforth about bringing a guest or a visitor, then you are not bringing a guest or a visitor. Can I say why? Yes. Cool. Yes.
Point of inquiry. So is that just pertaining to people that we're specifically bringing, or is that like if guests are coming to the gallery?
People that you're specifically bringing, like guests coming to the gallery is the point above, like all current faculty, students, like administration. I encourage you all to invite them to attend in person. However, there is a live stream option. We're living in COVID, y'all. Yes. That is a good question. We have not necessarily outlined an actual specific process, but what I will do is take that back to the advising team and then get that back to you on like a streamlined process of how that works. Cool. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. No. One, that's a fantastic idea, so I appreciate you for bringing that. 2, I would ask that you speak with Vice President Cragen, where are you at? Right here, who oversees senators, like onboarding and things like that, and just let her know that, like, hey, this would be my replacement for Hokie Pride, correct? For Hokie Pride, if you want them to, like, sit beside you so you can talk about, like, how to make motions, I actually encourage that. That is the camaraderie that I talk about all the time. So thank you for that. Any other questions before I move on? Okay, cool. At least one advisor must be present at all USS meetings. That really matters. I need to articulate that. And that goes for in-person or Zoom meetings. I'm going to highlight point E. This could potentially affect us today. So no USS meeting shall be longer than 90 minutes unless an extension is approved by a 2/3 majority of the voting members present. Meetings can be extended by a maximum of 30 minutes. With the additional time, no meetings can exceed a total of 120 minutes. Long story short, we will never be here longer than 2 hours. That is because we are going to start to become a little bit ineffective after a certain amount of time. And also, why are we here so late at night? Okay, continue. Keep going. Legislative policies and paths, I am going to save. We need to have an entire workshop on how to submit legislation and what the different types are, so that is forthcoming. We will do that at a later date. It talks about elections. This is a very brief overview of elections. There's going to be like an election guide that will come out before every election cycle that will have detailed information for candidates, for really everyone involved in the elections process. Yes, Senator Merritt. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think that that's something we can maneuver on a case-by-case basis, right? Like, so if we know we have a lot of pieces of legislation, and that's really why we're here, right? To have the conversations and advocate for the good student body. I would say that taking out cabinet reports would be something that I would probably request of cabinets. Like, those can be emailed out, so we have time to do legislation, but we also have time to cater to our guests and people that want to come during public forum. Does that make sense? All right, we're going to keep going. Okay, that is all I feel is pertinent for the Constitution. I do still encourage you all to read this. Even if you all do decide to pass it as second reading status, you still have an entire week to read this and come up with your thoughts and questions. Does anybody have any questions on the Constitution itself? Yes. Any other questions regarding the Constitution? Okay, great. We're going to switch over to the bylaws. This will be significantly quicker, I'll tell you that. Okay, scroll, pause. Yes. Mhm. Cool. And I think something that I tell myself that I feel like has been beneficial is the Constitution tells you the what and the why, and in the bylaws, you will often hear me say standard operating procedures or SOPs. That's just what I'm used to. That is the how we're doing it. So like the functionality, operational things that make it successful to support the Constitution in the what and the why. Okay, I am not going to go through position descriptions, which is the majority of this document. So scroll down. Here is where you will find, you can keep scrolling, eligibility requirements as well as like duties and responsibilities of cabinet, Senate, and all of the directors. So if you are like interested in the position, you're like, I'm a senator, but I want to know what the directors or what cabinet members do, the bylaws will be your reference point. It also goes over committees and has basically a charge as to what the committees are doing and things like that. I would also encourage you to do this specifically if this is your first time seeing this, which is the majority of you and you are on a committee, which is everyone in this space. I would take a look at what you got emailed earlier today and see, hey, are my ideas in alignment with what the bylaws are saying my committee should be doing? Next is representation in university governance. So I do want to talk about this just briefly. So aside from us as a body, we have we have commissions and committees. And a few people in here are actually on commissions and committees. University Council is one of them. Another one is the Commission on Student Affairs, which will eventually become the Commission on Undergraduate Student Affairs. There are some other words like Commission on International Affairs is one. Like there are examples of commissions that represent like different constituency groups and things like that. Vice President Cragen really manages that and gets people plugged in and things like that. I am assuming that we still have vacancies for some of them. So what that is really going to look like is if you are interested in serving on a commission or a committee, we can, email, and we can work on sending an email out of like the vacancies that are there. It is important to note that depending on the commission, it is done a little differently. So we can send your name up, but some of them are like elections, some of them are appointments. So depending on the commission that you sit on, there is a higher being outside of this space that will need to appoint you to that commission or committee. Does that make sense? Okay. Keep going. Keep going. All right, types of legislation. I'm going to talk briefly about this. Because I know we're starting to do the good advocacy work. So I'm going to really hit section 1. So there are different types of legislation. I just want to let you know what they're called and what it means in practicality. So the first one is an act. So if we are changing anything to the Constitution after this process is done and that they are our governing documents approved, it would be called an act. If there are changes to the bylaws, it is called a bill. For context, after this is over, the Constitution will be the only thing that needs to go up for a referendum. What is a referendum? If any of you have ever voted, like you vote for the actual people, and then sometimes there are like those questions that are like, do you want your parking to go up? Or like those questions, that is an example of a referendum. If we're changing anything in the Constitution, we will have those questions up because we need to get a student body vote, and a certain percentage of them need to be in favor of it in order for us to enact it. Yes?
If everyone's comfortable in the room, do you mind taking off your mask? Because there's certain words that just...
Yeah. Is everyone comfortable with me taking off my mask? Great, I feel free. So free, y'all. Okay, yes, so that is an act. A bill is the bylaws. So that does not need to go up for a referendum. So after we get this approved through the university governance structure and things like that, if we want to change like something in a position description, which will happen quite a bit as we flesh out what USS looks like, that will just need to be a piece of legislation, and that essentially stays in-house. So after USS approves it and the advisors are like, great, this is a great idea, and we talk to the people and do the things, that'll just become enacted. Next is proposed legislation that represents an official expression of opinion or will of the Senate shall be considered a resolution of student experience, denoted R-SE. I will also read D. So proposed legislation that addresses policy shall be considered a resolution for policy, denoted R-P. I'm going to take it back to water fountains every 5 feet. Who remembers that? That is an example of a resolution for the student experience. So when you think about something that's going to enrich the quality of Hokies, that is what that looks like. Policy are like actual institutional policies that exist. It's my understanding that a lot of you are interested in like Title IX. That is an example of a policy that if you wanted to make legislation, it would be denoted R-P. But if you wanted like water fountains every 5 feet, or like math MPO, or like more parking or something like that, that would be a resolution for the student experience. And those follow different processes. Policy needs to go through our Commission on Undergraduate Student Affairs, which is currently called our Commission on Student Affairs, that Vice President Guevara, I said that correct, right? Chairs. Resolutions for the student experience, that is what we talked about very heavily during training and onboarding. So making sure that the first thing that you're doing is connecting with those campus and community partners and having conversations about what that looks like. That is all going to go into the legislation, which happens at the very end after you do all of that work. That is a resolution for the student experience. Does everyone understand the differentiation between the two? Mm, mm. All right, cool. The last type of legislation is funding requests. So proposed legislation to allocate funding internally or externally shall be considered a resolution for funding request denoted FR. That can only come from the Appropriations Committee, which Vice President Weinkoop is the chair of. If you ever have a funding request, Vice President Weinkoop is the student representative that you need to talk to, and on the advising team, it is Gina Tamburo, because she advises finance and is very, very good at it. You can always talk to all of us, of course, but if you're looking for a specialist, those are the two people. Very good at their job. Also, props to them for getting the budget submitted so quickly. Yes. I am going to yield my time to Vice President Weinkoop.
Is this on?
It is.
Okay, so basically, I'm going to explain this as simply as I can. Student Budget Board is a basically standing committee given power to give funds to all student organizations. So there's like about 900 and something, I think, 837 plus like UCSOs, and then university student life programs. So that's things like club sports and stuff like that. So Student Budget Board does that, and basically what's happening is they're getting rebranded Appropriations Committee and just getting moved under. So all of the normal processes and things like that are still going to be in place. They're just getting a name change and a location change. So this applies to UCSOs and anybody who may be a treasurer for an RSO. Everything stays the same. It's just getting a name change and just coming under USS, and we're doing undergraduate funds, not graduate and undergraduate. Yeah. Huh? Oh, thanks.
what's important is senators, though, if you have a friend who is the president of the Green Grass Club, and he's like, hey, I really want to get some money so we can go on a field trip to the briar patch to go and get grass. Hey, have you gone to the appropriations committee? You should do that. They can allocate funds to you. And that's really what we're trying to do. We want you guys to be front and center on it. Does that make sense? I want you to feel like you have authority because you're very powerful people. And your first act of power is going to be to pass a new governance document. And that's powerful. And let me just say this. You're doing this as the first group. But next year, the other portions are going to do it. So you're ahead of everybody else. That's because you're awesome. Thanks, Jimmy. I'll give it to you.
Yeah, shout out to Jimmy. Senator Merritt, do you have a question?
Is there any sort of legislation or any sort of like document outlining what we should abstain from in voting when it comes to finance or like?
No, but I see where you're going with that question, and I think the best advice that I can give you right now, and please defer all of your questions to Sarah and Gina, is if there was ever like a piece of legislation and like you are a voting member of USS, but it is also an organization that you are a part of, I actually would ask that you abstain because that is a conflict of interest. But I think other than that, no. But I will defer to Vice President Wynkoop.
Is it on? It's not on.
Sorry. Basically, if you're a part of the appropriations committee, you can abstain from finance stuff. The only like finance stuff that you can abstain from for like appropriations committee, other than that, is like internal stuff. So like when I present the budget and I'm like, here's this sweet old budget, da 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 da, whatever. Like you guys could like ask me questions, quiz me on it, and then like when you vote to approve it, if that's what we deem doing, like that's just an example. I have to talk to my advisor. I'm speaking freely right now. Don't kill me. But so like that's when like you would like vote to approve, and you could abstain if one, you don't know enough about the topic, two, you have a conflict of interest, and then three, like if you had to leave the room for something, like, and you don't, and I guess that kind of ties into one, like, for example, if you have to go to the bathroom or whatever, and you're going over it, it's probably not best that you vote on it, to be honest with you, because you probably didn't hear everything unless you feel like you adequately understand, like, the context of what's happening. So those are the examples of when you could abstain, and that, like, applies largely to everything, but in the context of finances, which you asked the question, that would be it.
It's a lot better of an answer than I gave, so thank you. Senator Merritt, do you have a follow-up question? Okay.
My follow-up would be, would it be like something suggestible that like legislation regarding the like abstaining from finance when you're related to, just because I know that like since we're the only school in the nation that has this structure and we're the only school in the nation that probably allows students to eliminate money to other students, protectionism is probably going to be important. So like is that something that
So in the context of like us giving money to other people, you guys do not vote on that. The only people that vote on that is the appropriations committee. So if you're not in the appropriations committee, you don't have to worry about voting on finance stuff because that would bore you all to tears, and the meetings would be over 2 hours long just for that stuff, and I really don't want to put you guys through that. So I love the question though.
Unicameral structure, government in the nation. It's a beautiful saying.
every student government except Virginia Tech was allocating money to the crews.
Correct.
So we were the only one who wasn't doing it. So I started here in October of 2020. And when I realized the student senate didn't have the authority, or the student government had the authority to allocate funds or have the power to make policy, I just said we're going to change it. And I wasn't supposed to do that. So you should have that authority. So if you go to like Kentucky or any
any other questions about funding request? Money is always a hot topic. Yes, remind me of your name. Sure, yes, Logan. Oh, we met last time. Hello, yes.
Yeah, I'm just curious. So it's like, you pass legislation that might require funding, but it's not distributing money to student organizations. Like, if that would fall under policy or student life, or student.
That is a good question. Can I repeat the question? Yes. Repeat it back to me so I make sure I say it word for word because it's intricate and I want to make sure I say it correctly.
If you have a policy or student experience piece of legislation that requires funding,
Yeah.
that still has to go through appropriations if it's not distributing money to student organizations.
Right. So your question is, if there is a piece of legislation on the floor that's for the student experience or for policy, but there's an element of funding, does it, like, what designation is it under? That is going to be student experience or policy. That's not a funding request. Appropriations? It does not.
No, it would not unless, for some reason, and this is like a 0.0001% chance, so I'm saying that it's like, this will probably not happen. But if we wanted to use some of our generated funds to push towards a student issue to get something done, then it would have to, most likely. Because like we're using internal funds to solve a problem. But most of the time, when you guys are like using like creating pieces of legislation and you're asking for funding, that'll come from like the university. So you'll be asking for funding from like let's say, for example, you wanted more of the green reusable trays from dining services, and that obviously requires $5,000 worth of money. You would have to ask that it comes from that or find a place. You'd have to basically do a lot of research and talk with them about where it would have to come from and help them find that money, basically. But most of the time it will not come through appropriations unless it's an internal funding thing for all of us to vote on. But it was a really good question, though. Yeah.
What happens if we have an organization or an individual?
Oh, you have to turn on. Yeah.
What happens if we have an organization or individual who is requesting funds specifically from Undergraduate Student Senate along with our support?
So that's not a thing that can happen. You can ask for funds from appropriations, which I guess by proxy is Undergraduate Student Senate, but you'd have to apply through the same process that like any other organization would apply for. And because we have to treat every organization and request the same, we can't give special consideration for sponsored requests. So there isn't anywhere on the form for sponsoring requests because then that would go against one of our 5 core values, which is stewardship and being responsible with our money and like being equitable. So, but good question. I like that. Any other questions for me? Not to drone on. I know this isn't fun.
I have just a whole flashback to when you wanted to make stewardship one of the core values.
Oh yeah.
And everybody was like, no. I was like, I think it's a good idea. Okay, any other questions about funding? Yes.
I don't have, just so there's like, because I hear the same question kind of. Hello, can you guys hear me? I feel like all these questions are kind of from the same gray kind of area. So my question to Sarah will be, can you please explain, let's say I'm an RSO, and can you please explain if I were a UCSO, how I would get money through your committee?
So some jargon first. An RSO is a registered student organization. So a good example of this would be Quidditch Club. So if Quidditch Club came to us and said, okay, they want brooms, and they need money for brooms, so they're asking for funding from USS, aka the Appropriations Committee, because that's where funding comes from. They would submit a request via Gobbler Connect, and it would have to be, I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of it because that's just boring and would open a can of worms. But they would ask for that funding and say that they want it for brooms, and they would submit the request. For UCSO, on the other hand, most of their funding gets I'll touch on this later in my officer report if we get to it, but if we don't, it's basically this thing called annual funding request. So you ask for money before the year starts in January for the entire next school year. So that's how it would work for like university student chartered organizations, to keep it very plain. But everybody else, which is the majority, would have to apply for funds as they come. So like as you need them, you'd have to apply for them 30 days in advance. So yeah. And that's mainly RSOs, but if like a UCSO like had some spur of the moment funds that they need that they didn't foresee happening, they'd have to do that within 30 days. But that's a whole other can of worms. I keep saying that. That's my phrase of the day.
It is.
So
Cool.
just one thing, real quick. So I know there are lots of questions, but we're going to do trainings on all of this and workshops together. So don't worry about all the little technical questions. We'll get you trained on that. Does that make sense? Because we might be here for a long time asking technical questions. But we're going to don't worry. This is going to be a process together, okay? All right.
Okay, so for the interest of time, we're going to go ahead and move on, but I do want to highlight and just echo what Dr. Bridgeforth said. We are going to do extensive training and onboarding about policies and procedures and what that looks like. And I also don't want you all to think that like after these documents are done that like you can never make a change again. Like if we are finding that there is an actual major issue with the way that we are serving our students, that is a conversation I welcome in undergraduate students because that is the purpose as to why we are here. Does anybody have any questions about the Constitution or bylaws or anything that I went over or anything that I did not go over that you would like for me to articulate? Yes, Director Fields. I'm going to encourage us actually now for me to yield my time back to President Lohr and for us to take the recess so we can ask those questions. So I yield my time to President Lohr. Thank you all.
Is there a motion on the floor at this time for a recess?
Whenever you're making motions about like entering today's executive debate, like recess, things like that, you need to attach that time. Motion to enter, motion to like recess for 5 minutes, and then somebody will set a timer at the end of the 5 minutes is over, and somebody will have to motion to end the recess or end the debate before you can move on. Does that make sense? Cool.
Is there a second? Is there any opposition? Cool. Yep, with no opposition, we are now in a 5-minute recess.
All right, we're in recess now, but you can get up to the thing and talk. Is there a pause?
I don't think so.
Yeah, do that.
You think that worked?
Yes, it did. They are not saying anything we're saying. Right now it's just pause. Because if you end it, then we're going to have to restart the live stream
True.
before we're done for recess. So if you just pause it, just remember to hit play when it's over. Also, I need you to set a timer for somebody, whoever we talked about needs to set a timer for 5 minutes. And I know that's
Just did it.
Thank you. That is something that like I'm going to forget, but you have to remember.
Yeah.
Because I won't.
Yeah. Already, yeah.
Yes.
I'm Peter. I'm on.
Oh, you are?
I'm sorry for not.
I didn't know you were on my committee.
Peter's awesome.
Oh, wait, Peter. I heard Ryan Peter. I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. You're all good. Oh, I didn't know you were an FPA.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am. I'm a financial.
Hello. Oh, now it is. We good? All right, sounds good. How are we?
Hello,
how do I
sorry.
wrap up the conversation?
I was talking to all the people doing all the things. So at the end, after time has concluded,
Can I have is there a motion to end the 5-minute recess? Okay, Senator Maybach? Beautiful.
you have to ask, is there any opposition?
Is there any opposition? Seeing none, the recess is
has ended.
adjourned.
Yeah.
Okay, then we just move on?
So here is where it gets a little tricky-ish. So I'm going to say this, Jimmy Lowe, I'm going to volunteer you for this, and just talk to me afterwards in advance. So what I did not think through is how are we going to track all of the changes/amendments that you all are interested in making? That is not something that we can do in this space because each of you giving your thoughts, we would be here until the next Senate meeting, which we're not going to do. So I am going to ask Vice President Cragen, along with Senator Lowe and Senator Haggerty, who is the other chief sponsor on this, to have conversations about how they're going to streamline that process and figure out how to submit edits. Like maybe it'll be like a Google form, but like if you have thoughts, comments, questions, things you want to see on here, that is your right. But per time, we are going to streamline that process. Vice President Cragen will be in touch with what that looks like. Does that make sense? Cool. Now what needs to happen, if there are no other questions, is we need to take a vote on moving this to second reading status. I recognize this is the first time we're voting, so I'm going to walk you all through this. This is the first time they voted. Woo! I'll do it again. I'll do it again. This is the first time we are voting as the undergraduate students at Virginia Tech. Woo! Great. Thanks. So this happens a lot of different ways. There are a lot of steps, rather. So first we need to have a motion to enter voting procedure. So what that looks like is Caroline will say, is there a motion on the floor at this time? Somebody will say, motion to enter voting procedure. Somebody will second. If there are no oppositions, then we are now in voting procedure. When we are in voting procedure, there are 3 options: yay, nay, or abstain. Yay, you are in favor of moving this to second reading status. Moving it to second reading status just means that you have the time in between this time and next time to polish it up, make any edits, ask any questions. When it gets to second reading status, ideally what you would want is for it all to be final. Does that make sense? Cool. So then yay, nay, or abstain, and then if it's a majority like yay, then it passes. If it's a majority nay, it does not pass. And actually, if it is a majority abstain, it also does not pass. The only way it passes is if there are more yays than anything else. We will have like an electronic voting system that we'll be using that is currently en route, but for the sake of today, we are just going to do hands. Please keep your hand up so we can take an actual official count because that is something that absolutely needs to happen that we have for record purposes. It will. I will give Senator Sauce clicker number 1, and you will have clicker number 1 every single time. That is how I will track attendance, so I know that you're coming, and that is also how, if a senator is essentially like, Senator Sauce voted no on this, I want to reach out to them and ask why, because they are a part of my constituency group. A member of Hokie Pride could do that. Does that make sense? Cool.
Is there a motion on the floor at this time?
When it comes to voting, will also be released to broad delegations as well?
Like the student body? Yes, it'll be in the minutes, and then there will be a section on the website that has passed legislation, and under that we'll have the voting results.
Is there a motion on the floor at this time? Senator, yeah. Is there a second? Is there any opposition? Seeing none, we have moved into voting procedure.
All in favor?
Alex.
So
Sorry. Okay. All in favor of this legislation, please raise your hand. 43? Okay. Okay. Oh, were you telling me to?
Yes,
sorry.
any nays?
Any nays? Any abstentions?
So now, you'll say, with 43 yeas, 0 nays, and 0 abstentions, this piece of legislation is moved to second reading status, and then hit the ballot.
With 43 yeas, 0 nays, and 0 yes.
This piece of legislation
This piece of legislation has been moved to second reading session.
Cool.
Cool. Good job, guys. Good job.
Good work, y'all. That was exciting. I was
Love that for y'all.
glad to be in the
Okay,
moment.
moving on to new business. Ainsley?
Hi, everyone. Congratulations on voting for the first time in the Undergraduate Student Senate. That was definitely a really proud moment for us, even though we're still figuring out how everything works. I would like to invite Charlie Sloop up to the front. Charlie, I'm going to ask you to state your name, major, and senatorial position in the Senate and present it to the group.
Hi, Charlie Sloop, dual degree in Communication Science and Social Inquiry and Theater Arts concentrated in performance with minor in leadership and social change. I'm bar senator.
Awesome. So I've worked with Charlie before, and I just wanted to give him the opportunity to come on up here. He did a wonderful job with his interview and application to become a senator in the USS. We need a vote to induct him into the Undergraduate Student Senate. What's your... Thank you, Senator Stearns. Do we have a second? Thank you. All right. Charlie, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Charlie Sloop,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, uplift, and enhance
to support, uplift, and enhance
the well-being of the undergraduate student body at Virginia Tech,
the well-being of the undergraduate student body at Virginia Tech,
and affirm that I shall faithfully execute
and affirm that I shall faithfully execute
the duties and responsibilities
the duties and responsibilities
entrusted to me
entrusted to me
by the virtue of my office.
by the virtue of my office.
I will uphold the Constitution and bylaws
I will uphold the Constitution and bylaws
of the Undergraduate Student Senate.
of the Undergraduate Student Senate.
I will do my best to make my training,
I will do my best to make my training,
example, leadership, and influence
example, leadership, and influence
count strongly towards the betterment
come strongly to the betterment
of the undergraduate student experience
of the undergraduate student experience
at Virginia Tech.
at Virginia Tech.
As a representative and advocate,
As a representative advocate,
I vow to champion the voice of the undergraduate student body.
I vow and champion the voice of the undergraduate student body.
I take this obligation freely,
I take this obligation freely,
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and I will faithfully conduct
and I will faithfully conduct
the duties of the office of which I'm about to enter.
the duties of the office in which I'm about to enter.
Thank you. You're officially inducted into the Undergraduate Student Senate. You can go ahead and take a seat with the student body. Thank you.
What? Oh. They didn't vote.
Ah, I see what happened. Okay, not a big deal. Not a big deal. We're working on it. Charlie, can you come back up here, please? All right. So, for the sake of time, we are not going to reread the oath, but we are going to do the vote because the vote matters. So, in your mind, pretend that this was flipped, and in the event that you do not get it, which you're going to be fine. We would need to switch it, but for the sake of this, pretend that we are doing this backwards.
Okay, feed it to me, Juwan. What am I saying to him?
Technically, Caroline needs to do this,
Okay.
which we should really change that in the governing documents because you do a lot of moving, Caroline. Okay, so just thank you, Vice President Craig, and is there a motion on the floor at this time?
Thank you, Vice President Cragen. Is there a motion on the floor at this time? Alrighty. Beautiful. Are there any oppositions? Seeing none, we're going to go ahead and vote. All yay?
All in favor? Yeah.
All in favor?
It's 43. Don't even have to count. I just did it.
Beautiful. All opposed? Yeah, put your hand down. All right, seeing none.
Wait, pause. Any abstentions? You have to ask that too.
Any abstentions?
Okay, now you can.
All
say
right.
it.
Seeing none, congratulations, Charlie.
Pause. Wait, hold your clap. Announce the vote back. So like with 43
okay.
yeas,
43 yeas, 0 nays, and 0
abstentions.
abstentions.
Congratulations, Charlie.
Congratulations, Charlie.
Cool.
All right. Moving on to cabinet reports. Are there any vital cabinet reports that have to happen tonight? All right.
I'll just do it here.
Please come to the podium for live streaming purposes. I just want everybody to be able to see you.
I just wanted to let you all know that during the public forum section of the agenda, each speaker will have 2 minutes to speak, just to get your point across and just streamline everything. So when we get to that part, just know you have 2 minutes if you're going to speak. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll provide some context to this. So we are really trying to, we're reimagining what public forum looks like. We want to make it accessible to all students, but also want to keep in mind that we are here for business and trying to balance those two things. So we are going to be trying a plethora of things. And the first thing is this time limit. It could stay, it could not stay, but you're going to see a lot of movement in what that looks like. So just bear with us while we try to figure out what it looks like in practicality. Thank you. Senator Maybach. Okay, so yes, first, thank you. I appreciate you for knowing that that's what needs to happen at 7:59. Technically, we started at, what, 6:40? Yeah, so technically we're not at 90 minutes yet. It's not really 6:30 to 8. It's 90 minutes from when we start to when we finish. Yeah, y'all thought y'all were leaving in 60 seconds.
Wait, if she made a motion, do we have to follow through with it, or?
The motion will technically die if nobody says anything, per Robert's rules.
Cool.
I would like to do my officer report.
Yeah.
Okay, can you go to my slide? Yeah. Hey, you beautiful people. I'm going to take off my mask, if that's okay. So, basically, I had a lot of finance things happen. So, yesterday was the deadline for the annual funding request that I had mentioned earlier when I was speaking and answering questions. So, basically, that's me applying for funding on behalf of Undergraduate Student Senate for next year. That's 2022-2023. We asked for $22,249.29. We will most likely not get all of that money, but you shoot for the stars. Also, so some of the internal funds this week was we had $415.60 go towards Reading Day with USS, which will now be called Stress Less with USS, which is a program being put on at the end of each semester. And basically we take Commonwealth Ballroom, we rent it out, we put a bunch of tables out there so that everybody can have a study space because the library is super packed. My last thing that I wanted to mention is I really need you guys to go and sign up for Hokie Effect tabling and USS Town Hall tabling. And something really interesting, which I hope y'all will do, is please, in that the Hokie Effect thing, if you click on the link down at the bottom, you can sign up to actually throw t-shirts at the Hokie Effect, 2 Hokie Effect games. So that means you'll be on the court with the basketball players throwing shirts. That sounds like fun. So let's go out and sign up for it, please. Right, Meredith? Is that correct? Period. Okay, that is my report.
Thank you, Sarah. Moving on, we have director reports. Are there any vital director reports? Is the stuff that you guys want to talk about, can that be put in an email? Cool.
Hello, everyone. So I'm going to send out my membership development stuff in an email or Slack message. But for the time being, I do have a guest today, Kat Herrick, who's here to talk about the Hokey Hiccups event that I have been mentioning to you a lot over the past couple of weeks. So here we go. Here's her.
Hi everyone, my name is Kat. I am one of your homecoming royalty candidate members, so if you voted for me, thank you. And especially now during those times, I know it's really hard. Our hearts are really heavy in this Hokie community right now. My platform is suicide prevention and all about mental health, so it's something I'm very passionate about, making sure that every Hokie is not alone and has the resources that they need. And so I'm planning a whole mental health week next week, February 14th through the 18th, and one of the events include the Hokie Hiccups event, and not that in any form or shape that your mental health is a hiccup at all, but this is just an event that has been through Hokie Wellness, and it's about hope and resiliency and being able to be vulnerable in our struggles with mental health and just struggles on college campus. Monday's a watercolor event. Wednesday, I'm going to the corridors, bring a therapy dog, pizza. Thursday's free gym classes at McComas, group classes for all students, and Friday I'm doing a special art reveal, so just wanted to talk about that to spread awareness about it, and especially now, just having a little mental break, I think is all what we kind of need right now, so yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, so come out to Hokie Hiccups. It's on Tuesday, February 15th. We do have committee meetings that night, but if you really want to come, ask your committee leader. Thank you. Yeah.
John? Katie? Katie.
Okay, so I said with my committee, please meet me after. I can't do that. Don't meet after. Just go home. But yeah, if the biggest change is if you submit a social media form and you don't hear back within 48 hours, shoot me an email. There's been some miscommunication recently. And also, for our Squire speed dating video, please message me if you're in an organization. Please, I'm begging you to be in a video. Also, our newsletter is coming out next week, and there's a form to scan for ideas. That's it.
Beautiful. Alrighty, John.
Okay, I'm going to keep this real quick and real cute. So, yeah, USS Town Hall, very first one, really exciting. February 17th, Thursday at 7 p.m. It's going to be 45 minutes long. We're going to have Dean of Students, Dr. Byron Hughes, and Chris Wise, who's in charge of student health. It will be Zoom, and it will be live streamed to the student body. There will not be students actually present asking questions. This is why it is absolutely vital that you all go out and get feedback. So far, I've had 2 senators that did tabling, put feedback into the shared Google Doc. I really need more than that if this is going to be an informed and really useful town hall. What else? UCSO and college reps, please reach out to me. I'm really interested in doing events with y'all. That's it. Thank you.
Meredith?
Okay, Sarah already talked about this. We need volunteers for t-shirt tosses, but more importantly, we need volunteers for this Sunday. None of you have signed up, I'm pretty sure, except Ainsley. Thank you, Ainsley. There's going to be 200 hot dogs coming to Diedrich Lawn. I can't do 200 hot dogs by myself. So if you are free from 12 to 1, or for 30 minutes like 11:30 to 12, or 1 to 1:30, come. If you're not free, tell your friends to come so I don't have to deal with 200 leftover hot dogs. Thank you.
Alrighty, moving on to university governance report, there is none. Advisor reports.
Yeah, I'll make it quick, y'all. I know we're all like getting antsy and ready to leave, which leads me to my first report. I'll go ahead and I'll switch mics. Okay, I'm not trying to be all like the bell doesn't dismiss you, I do, but I see a few of us are like a little antsy. can we just refrain from that just because I want to make sure we keep the environment of productivity? Like, I know that we all have things that we want to do afterwards, but just when we're here, let's all make the commitment to be here. I would really appreciate that. The second thing is next week. So let's talk about next week's committee meeting. We are going to meet in here next week at 6:30. Why? Because we need to make sure that that is the second reading status of the legislation, because this needs to go ahead and be approved. It has to be approved next week so we can have it for CSA on that Thursday. So we are going to meet in here next Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. Where are we meeting next week? Where is here? The correct answer was Colonial. I just wanted to quiz you. But yes, please do that. I do not want to take away your committee time. I know that that is something that is precious to you all, and for chairs, I understand that that is something important. So please do the good work between this week and next week so that we can get here, answer any final questions we may have, go ahead and pass the legislation. That way we can break into committee meetings and you all have time to maximize. Senator Sauce. Correct. I will make that commitment to you for you all to receive notification no later than 5 p.m. tomorrow on what that will look like. Cool. Any other questions about that? Cool. My last thing is the quote of the week. I'm always going to do a quote of the week because I feel like it's important. This week is every day of our lives we are on the verge of making those slight changes that would make all the difference. I think about that a lot, and I really thought about that today, and I was excited when I picked this one because I think we're at the beginning, we're at the genesis of something super cool. And I think it's really easy to say that, I'm just going to get relaxed. I know a little bit of the things, but I think I'm going to encourage you all to encourage your fellow Hokies that are not in this space to always fight the good work. It doesn't have to look like taking a mile, just get to the track. Cool. Have a great rest of your week.
Alrighty. Yeah. Giovanni got everybody excited. Alrighty. Dr. B, you good? Yes, fantastic work. Moving on to public forum. Does anybody, no one wants to speak? That's okay. That's, John, that's so funny. All right, seeing none, we're gonna move on to adjournment. Read through it again. All righty, we had the call to order, the adoption of agenda, the adoption of previous minutes, guest
Pause.
speaker.
So now that we're starting to do the things, whenever something happens as a result of what's on the agenda, say that. What do I mean? The adoption of the previous minutes, which were approved.
Oh, word, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah,
Like
it's all
the adoption of agenda approved?
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
doing fancy stuff
Cool,
now.
sounds good, let's start over. We're starting at the call to order with the adoption of agenda that was approved. We had the adoption of previous minutes that was approved. We did not, guest speaker, which was none, old business, which was none, new business, which is a reading of the governing docs, which was approved for a second reading.
Which was moved to second reading status.
Moved to second reading, thank you.
Mhm.
And we had the inauguration of a new senator member that was approved.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Cabinet reports, director reports, university governance reports, advisor reports, public forum.
And now adjournment. So is there a motion?
And
on the
now
floor?
adjournment.
No, wait, pause,
Nope,
pause.
Sorry,
Just, you have to say the word adjournment to
Okay.
acknowledge that's where we are,
Yes.
and then be like, is there a motion?
we
on the
are at
floor?
adjournment. Is there a motion?
Pause, because a lot of y'all were feeling froggy. You are not dismissed until that gavel hits. That is the one thing that I am super passionate about. Until that gavel hits, you cannot get up. So let's try that again. We are now at adjournment.
Is there a motion? Second. Is there any opposition? Yes. All right, seeing none, we're adjourned.
Great.
Woo! Good job,
Have a great
guys.
rest of your evening,
Fantastic work.
friends.
No, leave them.